Hi guys, it's Lesley Tao here and welcome to my YouTube. Whoa, so today I've got a bit of a fun story for you guys, and well, not even fun, shocking story. So today I'm going to tell you guys the story about how my landlord's property in London got turned into a massive marijuana den over lockdown. And before I continue to the story, please make sure that you hit the subscribe button below, ding ding, and you hit the notification bell so you can access all my new content and never miss out on the videos that are coming out every Monday, Wednesday and Friday. Alright, so let's get to the story. So this is a landlord that I adore actually. So we've got a really good relationship. We manage one of her properties in Cambridge on a rent-to-rent basis, which is a subleasing strategy, and she's aware of that, and we've got her blessing and her full consent. And when we redid the house, she came and did a before and after, in terms of she came to inspect and, you know, see what we've done. And just for reference, I will put pictures of the property of her that we have on as well, so you can see the transformation. So here are the pictures. So obviously we've got a very good relationship with this landlord, and she contacted me at the beginning of this year, so I think it was January 2020, and she basically has a house in London, and she had a bit of trouble with the tenants there because I think they were behind on their rent, but she finally managed to get them out, and she had spent, you know, not a big sum, not massive, but it was a fairly substantial sum of money renovating that property because it had been, you know, a couple of years since she last did a renovation there. And she bought the property originally for one of her kids who was at a university nearby. So this is one of the London universities. Now you know, it was quite stressful in terms of because most of her properties are based in Cambridge, and she's Cambridge based, so she knows people here, you know, she knows people well, and it's easy for her to find tenants. Whereas even though she had a agency, so a lettings and management agency who had a number of years relationship with her, it sort of you know, got a bit sour in the end. So she finally, you know, spent a lot of money to redo the property up. So, you know, it was had a lick of paint, so it's looking, you know, fairly good. And I've got some before pictures here to show you guys. So she spent money going to go back into her property again. And she got in touch with me in January, and unfortunately we couldn't take this property on because my property portfolio is based in Cambridge, and you know, I couldn't really at that point, with the resources I had, stretch it to London, and so you know, we couldn't really take that property on. But what she had asked me to help her with, which is what I did, was do a background check on this letting/management agency in London, and I did. And they, you know, and I spoke with the director and the owner of that particular company as well, and we did some due diligence. I looked through their company background, and, you know, to make sure everything was what they said it was in terms of as an agency, and everything checked out fine. And so they basically placed a tenant in the property, and it was my landlord was under the impression. So she was under the impression that it was a family with one child that was going to be staying at her property. So she had met them, you know, she signed the contract with the agency, everything checked out fine. And then wham, in March we had the lockdown. So at the beginning of July, so this month, she had a phone call from the police, and the police basically wanted her permission to storm the property, so break down the door and go and storm the property because there was a drug operation going on. And she phoned me, and we were like, that's really weird, and we couldn't get hold of the agency, so they stopped answering her calls. And she had, although she messaged them and she left voice messages, etc., and she tried to call them a few times, but her main contact just sort of didn't really respond back. Later on, by the way, we found out that the office made an excuse excuse and said that he was ill, but he's sort of back now and sorting out the situation, which is good. But she got a call from the police who basically wanted to break the door down to go and raid the property because there was a drugs operation going on. And she phoned me and we were both really shocked. We were like, what's going on? And I said to her, well, you're quite friendly with the neighbours, so first thing you need to do is just verify that there's actually police outside the property, because the last thing you want to do is give somebody who's pretending to be the police authorization to break the door down. So that I guess the neighbour checked that it was the police, so we knew that, you know, she was actually speaking with the police, and then she gave them the authorization to enter into the property. So what happened was they broke down the door, and this is what they discovered. So I've got some footage and some pictures that I'm going to share with you guys. And I personally have never seen anything like this. I've never had a drugs operation happen in any one of our properties in Cambridge either. And so it's quite shocking. So you can see that, you know, that they've like made holes in the ceilings so that they can, you know, put some sort of ventilation, I think a ventilation shaft through. And this is, from what it looks like, it was it does look like a factory, by the way, but in a house. But what it looks like, you know, they were growing lots and lots of marijuana. But I must say, like, although they've wrecked the property, but they sort of, you know, all the pots and stuff are lined up in quite a neat way. I would have expected it to be super messy, but, or maybe it's because the property, you know, has been newly refurbished. It doesn't look as bad as it could have been. So they put like weird electricity, you know, put all the electricity, because I was told that, you know, they need to keep it really warm and the right temperature for marijuana, for weed, drugs. So you know, so this happened, and my landlord, she's like, you know, she's like older, she's like my mum and dad's generation. Obviously she's devastated because she just spent so much money on this property, and like we did as much as we could to sort of, you know, make sure that the agencies were genuine, but obviously it was left up to the agency to actually verify these tenants, and they had actually recommended these tenants. So that was, you know, that was a bit strange. And they had recommended these tenants because they had apparently stayed in another property that they had been managing. So there were some bits that, you know, were really weird and not adding up. But anyway, so this is what happened to the property. Now guys, obviously the landlord needs to rectify the damage, and at the moment the insurance company is so the assessor's been out to assess the damage. So we're just trying to see whether or not she can claim on her insurance. Okay, so how much do you think she needs to spend to rectify the damages in this property? So give me an answer. It could be, you know, what do you think she might need to spend? £5,000, £10,000, £15,000, £20,000 or more? Drop your answer in the commentary section below, okay? I will make a follow-up video to this once we find out what the property looks like after the drug raid and what she's done to rectify it. But let me know what your thoughts are on how much she needs to spend to get this property back to what it was looking before, so January. So there's a few observations here that, you know, I found I wanted to share with you guys because it's interesting, which is obviously nobody could inspect the property because she rented the property out in January, and then we had the lockdown, and then the police called at the beginning of July. So it was about, let's say, a 6-month period. And, you know, obviously during lockdown we couldn't inspect, like as an agency you don't do property inspections anyway. I would say that the police did like a fairly good job to, you know, track down that there is this drug issue going on in her property in such a short space of time. So what I mean by that is her damages could have been a lot worse had they not caught them with, you know, at the 6-month mark. So I think that was a little bit of a blessing there. And some other observations were, you know, what's going on with the agency, because that the guy disappeared for a bit, and the office finally got back to my landlord, and he was a bit unwell, and he also wasn't going to be involved with, you know, dealing with her anymore. But suddenly, since she has expressed an interest to maybe sell the property, he's sort of jumped back into action again. So what's going on with that? And also, what's going on with the tenant they put in, because she had met him face to face and they had recommended the tenants in the first place because they had stayed at another property of theirs. So do you think that the agency is innocent or not? You know, let me know what your thoughts are below. It could be that they are innocent and didn't know what was going on, and that was something that the tenant that they had recommended had, you know, pulled the wool over their eyes on. But I guess another question is, how do you spot that this is happening to your property? So I was having a think about this, and, you know, apart from, you know, being good friends with the neighbours and keeping that relationship there and informing your neighbours, you know, who is staying at the property, and apart from doing regular inspections, which wasn't possible anyway, and usually you wouldn't do like a 3-month inspection anyway, usually it's like 6 months or 12 months, then, you know, how else can you sort of protect yourself against tenants like this? And, you know, as I said, I think it's just a matter of being as vigilant as possible. But unfortunately, I just feel like my landlord here has been a little bit hard done by and had a bit of a spill of bad luck, because, you know, we did our due diligence together on the agency as well. And the agency, by the way, at the moment, so these are things that have happened that have been good, okay, in terms of what they've done. So they have refunded my landlord their management fees that they took, and also the deposit that was taken off the tenant. So that has been forthcoming, so it hasn't been a complete shambles. So that has, you know, that's happened, you know. But what other, you know, what other things can you guys think of that, you know, a landlord like this might be able to do to sort of try and make sure she doesn't have tenants like this again? I think, unfortunately, you know, that these things might happen. Just got to be more vigilant, you know, with checks and inspection, as I mentioned, making sure your neighbour, you know, knows what's going on as well. Because the good thing about the neighbour here is that they told my landlord, after my landlord opened up about who she rented the property to, it was a family apparently, but they have said that they never seen like any, you know, not a child or, you know, a family, you know, family members entering into that property. They've just seen, you know, some men, young men, and that was it. So I think it's just making sure that, you know, people are, you know, aware of who's in the property, and sometimes just to keep an eye out. That's all. Let me know what your thoughts are then, guys. So it's a fairly shortish video today, but I just wanted to share, you know, this is what's happened to a landlord of mine, and I hope that none of you guys have to experience this. But I think if you own a property, you know, you've got to make sure that you've got constant inspections. So every 6 months is doable. And the good thing about this one is at least it was caught early, but I'm still quite shocked, and maybe you guys will find it shocking too, because imagine you guys putting all that effort and money into your investment property, and this is how it's treated. It's fairly bad, isn't it? Right, guys, so this is the end of the video. Hope you guys enjoyed it. If you have, please make sure you're smashing that like button, because I really appreciate it, and I'll make sure that I create more like different but, you know, on point content as we go. And make sure you're subscribed. All right, so Lesley Tao here. I'm checking out. Lots of love. Bye.